All right, so welcome back, BroPartisans. Okay, so first thing, this is going to be a little bit different. So I'm gonna read Rob a series of statements, um, and I just kind of want to get his reaction, and then we can discuss. Okay,
So are
so
these
here they're mixed, both right wing and left wing. So they're just statements, and I just want to get what you think. Okay,
do I have
ready?
a time limit?
No, no,
Okay.
no, no.
Okay.
I mean, we're just going. This is
Okay.
this is off the cuff. You know, here we go.
All right.
Number one, only mediocre people care about work-life balance.
False. I would say that's false. I don't know. Is this? Are these? Am I supposed? Am I supposed to like give more than that? Like,
Yeah, you're supposed to give your thoughts on that.
no, it's true. That's not true. It's false.
Why is it false?
Well, I think that mediocre people and above care about work-life balance. I think that there's a lot of people who, and again, it depends on how you define mediocre. If you just say, if we just create like an arbitrary definition of mediocre as like, I want to be successful, right? And I want to have enough money to not worry about money, right? Is that mediocre? Is that above average? Is that above mediocre? Because mediocre is average. So I would say that's above average. That's always been my goal, right? Like, I don't want to make so much money that it's stupid, but I want to have enough money that I don't have to worry about money, right? And I want to be able to do the things that I want to do. So I think that having that balance and worrying about that balance is important. Now, I think that everyone worries about that balance. Then people who are, say, uber successful, we've already said on the show, like, people who are corporate CEOs are essentially the only way you can get to that position is by being at least a little bit of a sociopath. And maybe for them, the success is the goal in and of itself, and that's their life. But if your work is not your life, then there has to be a balance.
So, I've thought about this, and I've thought about this a lot. I don't know if we've talked about it before on the show or we've talked about it at all before, but I always think back to Tiger Woods, Kobe Bryant, Ben Roethlisberger. Now, these are guys that are considered the best, right? One of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kobe figured it out, but in the beginning, Kobe, all he did was basketball. Work, sleep, breathe, eat, drink, basketball. And that was all he did. And he's considered the best.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the stuff comes out about him being a terrible person, right? Same thing with Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is the best, arguably the best, right? Comes out, he cheats on his wife all the time. And I think there's a thing where you've done this your whole life. You've spent all this time goal driven. Part of your social brain goes out the window, or you don't develop that when you are considered the best at something, because you don't have the balance, right? So there is something to be said for that statement. Is if you think there's only people that are mediocre believe in a work-life balance, or only mediocre people care about work-life balance, there is something to be said for that.
Well, I think that
what the fuck kind of person are you trying to be?
I think it goes back to the definition of mediocre person. Like, if you were a stay-at-home dad and you were the best stay-at-home dad in the world, like, you are the best, what does that mean? Like, does that make you a mediocre person? Does it make you less worthy? Or, obviously monetarily, financially, you're less successful than Kobe Bryant, aren't we all? Right, but like, does that make you a worse person? So I think like, to me, like, mediocre is like people who, I mean, obviously that's average, right? Most people just want to have enough to get by and live their lives the way they want to, right? If you were to go,
and this is one of the things that I think a lot of people misconstrue about some of the anti-work stuff, in that you think of them as lazy, right? And then the lady goes on goes on Fox effing News. I don't know if you've seen this, and says laziness is a virtue. And the guy doing the interview, just like you see his just lines up. He's like, "You've given me a gift. I'm about to destroy you." But my
oh, really?
but the reality is that people that are well off, people that are wealthy, people that are born into wealth, they have that work-life balance. If they want to go take a week, 2 weeks vacation, hop on a yacht and go to wherever, they can. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing that's going to stop them. They're going to be okay. Mm. Most of us don't have that. Like, if we can't on a whim take off of work. We can't on a whim go take 2 weeks off to go on an adventure, right? We have responsibilities. We have things to do. We have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week for those normal folks like us. So I think the work-life balance is, people want, like you said, people want enough to be taken care of, but they also want enough to enjoy the life that they're building.
Well, read the statement for me one more time. I'll make sure I'm getting the wording right.
Only mediocre people care about work-life balance.
So, what struck me just now, and with your comments before, you picked 3 very successful, the best, right? Top of their field.
Yeah.
What about those less than mediocre? Because the statement says only mediocre people.
Yeah, who knows?
So we looked at above mediocre. What about less than mediocre? Like,
I don't know.
Is there less concern about a work? Is there less concerned about life? Is there less concerned about, like?
So maybe they're more concerned about life than work.
Right? So maybe that in and of itself, and finding that balance between the two, is really what, like, I don't know, like, someone who is successful and good at managing their resources really fits in, right? Because you talk about people who are less successful. Maybe they don't work. Maybe they collect a check. And they are entirely inward about what's good for me, what's good for my life, what I want to do right now. And maybe I don't have enough money to take a trip on a yacht to Barbados, but I'm not working as a drone. Whatever that is, right? So,
right.
I think it's too personal.
So that leads me to my next thing, because basically people are different. Okay, so my next thing is where is it? Diamonds are formed under pressure, but bread rises when it's allowed to rest.
I mean, there's a metaphor in here I'm supposed to interpret.
Yeah, no, it's all very metaphorical. So I just wanted to. That's why it's very ambiguous here.
It's very well. It's not even that ambiguous. It's like it's pretty much on the nose. So it's like, do you want to be a fat, expansive, rested person, or do you want to be a hard as a rock diamond kind of person who thrives under pressure? And I obviously. A diamond is literally just pressurized charcoal. So what's left in your life when you are hard as a diamond, right? There's a lot of stuff in bread. You know, it expands, it fills the thing, it rises, the yeast expands and causes the bread to rise, whatever, like. And so if you were thinking of it in purely metaphorical terms, the diamond is one thing, carbon. That's it.
Yeah, it's very
the bread
pure.
has lots of ingredients. So, you know, at that point I would say, like, well, you know, one of the things that's one of the most used words in the Bible is like rest. You should rest. You should, like, on the seventh day God rested. Joseph rested. After he built the temple, he rested. After he did this, he rested. Like, so, I mean, as a human, as a person, we have to rest. We spend a third of our lives, minimum, in bed, asleep, somewhere, right? You got to recharge, right? And I think that if you've only got one thing in your life, you can be very good at it. But that does not make you a well-rounded individual.
It's true. It's true.
So, I mean, it's an interesting analogy, but I don't know.
So I have two things about this. One is the human body. Okay, so if you go for 3 days without sleep, you start to see hallucinations.
Yeah.
At day 7 or 8, those hallucinations are permanent. At day 11, you're dead. You can go longer without food than you can go without sleep.
But you can't go
That's
as
crazy.
long without water.
No, you got 3 days.
You got 3 days. That's it. Yeah.
That's the rule of 3. Okay, and then here's the other thing.
Interesting.
Have you ever heard?
Isn't it after like 26 hours you're like legally drunk, too? Something like that. Like if without 26 hours without sleep, you're legally drunk, and you're not feeling good.
You're delirious. No, there's signs all over Utah talking about drowsy driving, because if you go past Salt Lake City in Utah, it's desert, and it's just flat, and there's nothing. There's literally nothing, and so there's signs everywhere like, if you're drowsy, pull off. Like, drowsy driving is drunk driving. Like, I'm like, man, there must be a big problem out here or something. I don't know.
It was pretty bad up in North Texas, you know.
Yeah,
up near Amarillo, like
on 287.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That was where they first had the side bumpers on the highway near the medians. Like that, I first experienced that ever was out there on 287. Of course, I learned to drive out there, so maybe that's not necessarily an accurate
that might be
statement, but like, you know, whatever. That's not important. Don't worry about that.
So the other thing I have you ever heard, it's not like a story, but the statement about the carrot or the egg?
No, I was expecting
like
a carrot or a stick, so I'm not familiar with the carrot or the egg.
So you have boiling water. You put a carrot into the water. What happens to it?
Splits?
It turns to mush, right?
Yeah.
Crumbles. Or a potato. I think a potato or the egg. You put egg in in boiling water. What happens to it?
Cracks.
Well, it hardens and becomes brittle, right? If you put a coffee bean into boiling water, what happens to it?
I don't know. I'm getting all these wrong. What happens?
It changes the water. It becomes coffee. So it's funny because when I was teaching health, this was one of the lessons that I did, and I had like a whole big lesson plan. And some fucking jackoff wrote a book called the potato or the egg or the carrot or the egg. And I'm like, he didn't even have the coffee bean. This son of a bitch. Like, because, you know, he's like, I think, you know, the metaphor is like, how do you want to react to hard situations, right? You know, How are you gonna? Which one is you when bad shit happens? Are you gonna turn to mush? Are you gonna become hard and brittle, or are you gonna change the water? Are you gonna change everything around you to fit you? But to go deeper than that is like people are different, just like the diamond and just like the bread. People are different. People react differently to different situations, and there's no cookie cutter, this is how you're supposed to be kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I take. All right, ready about
at the end of the day, that's all there is. It's like I think the one of the only indicator of success isn't talent, isn't it's perseverance. And that's what I think. Yeah. Can you pick yourself back up? Can you keep at something long enough to become the master or whatever? So anyway, please next
it's called grit.
Grit.
Anyway, that's one of the things we try to teach to our kids. All right. Billionaires risk and lose millions to become billionaires. Millionaires risk and lose thousands or hundreds of thousands to become millionaires. Broke people typically want to lose nothing yet still become rich. This is the broken money mindset of poor people. Will you repeat it?
No, I'm just thinking about it. Like, I think that's wrong. You can't make millions by losing money, right? And surely you have a bad investment every now and then, and you could lose money. But in the grand scheme of things, you're making way more than you're losing, right? Now, I don't know of many millionaires who made their millions on like one stock or something like that, right? Like, so like, I don't know how much money like somebody like Warren Buffett started with, right?
Oh, his daddy owned the company before.
Yeah. So okay, so his daddy owned the company, right? So he started with money, right?
Mm-hmm. Elon Musk parents had an emerald mine. Jeff Bezos parents gave him, I think, $2 million.
Let's look at like Zuckerberg, right? He was a Harvard student. I don't know what his parents did, right? But
apparently his family had friends on some IT something or other that ended up giving him an investment.
So most of their startup money came from the federal government, like when it went nationwide, right?
Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a FBI CIA slush fund that funded Facebook going past colleges, right? To invest in their server space and everything else, right?
Oh,
Bill Gates was literally building computers in his garage,
No, he was the parent. He was the parent that had an investment with the IBM.
Who's that?
Parent was on the board with the CEO of IBM.
Who are we talking about? I mentioned two names.
Bill Gates. I'm sorry.
Gates,
it was Bill Gates. I didn't. Zuckerberg was wrong. The parent was Bill Gates. There's a $200,000 investment from IBM to Bill Gates' company.
Right.
Because of parents being on the board.
So, regardless, like, all of those people started something new. And I think a lot of that risk was cushioned because of that, right? I'm sure they still had failing bids. They still had lost profit. Even Tesla's still, like, barely trying to turn a profit maybe this year, right, with orders, and their factories are backed up or whatever. Everything's backed up right now, but, like, there's a lot of unsuccessful businesses that have been propped up by existing money. Most people can't afford to lose and gamble with like rent money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like if you or I were to invest $1,000 a month in something, like it would hurt to lose that, right?
Yeah.
Even if I could afford it, it would not be comfortable. So just take $1,000 off the top and go put it towards some business venture trying to make money. And I think that may be kind of what this is making me think about, as far as like why poor people are scared to lose anything. And it's like, yeah, because we can't afford to, right? That's so dumb.
That's
like,
the joke.
Like,
Because I don't know if this guy actually thinks this way, but
I'm sure he does. I mean, you know, this is some guy who sits at Harvard economics class and like wrote this thesis about like, wow, look at all this money that, you know, this investment banker has lost, blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but have you seen his balance sheets? Like, dude's holding on to millions of dollars and moving it around, and yeah, so he lost a couple $100,000 over here, but he made $5 million on this trade right here. Like, these things are not
one of the
equal.
things that I've heard from people who did like are doing pretty well now, that came from nothing, that they, you know, because people talk about, you know, some of your problems with your being poor and staying poor, or being, you know, less wealthy and staying that way, is because you make bad decisions with money, or you're bad with money.
There's a
and
lot
they
of
were saying that people that have money are still bad with money. They can just replace it.
Mm-hmm.
Where a $1,000 mistake, you can overcome it. You know, if you
it just takes me 6 months or whatever. Like, you know,
right. But like, some people, they make $1,000 mistake, holy shit, it'll ruin their life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so
well, you remember
I think
the legend.
People are bad. People are equally bad with money, but it affects a poor person significantly more. I mean, 70% of the country can't afford a $1,000 emergency. 70%. 67 to 70% live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, think about that. That's a significant amount of people.
Do you remember? You remember the legend of Guh?
Go. Yeah. Go.
This guy right here.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
All right. So I'll just leave it at that, right? So like bad decisions, taking risks you can't afford, right? This guy is a legend. All right. How much fake capital did he get? Like 200,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like scheming Robin Hood, and then he bet all of it and lost it in the opening bell. And not only did he lose it, but he owed like $500,000 in the hole.
Yeah.
So
he was risking. He was
yeah.
he was risking the money.
He was risking everything he did not earn, right? So it was money he didn't have. 4 times his initial. No, it was like 32 times his initial investment, or something like that. Anyway.
Yeah. He was doing it. He was trying to become rich.
Yeah.
He was risking hundreds of thousands to become a millionaire.
Yeah, he was risking hundreds of thousands to become a millionaire, and he is now a potato.
All right, you ready? Here's the next one.
All right.
Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell.
Growth for the sake of growth. No, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I don't agree with that. And I think that comes down to my definition of growth and what it means to me as a person. So if you're talking about like a business growing for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell, maybe. But even then, it's like I can employ more people, I can sell more product, I can do more things, I have more capital to invest back in my stuff. Then. If I'm talking about my personal growth as the ideology of a cancer cell, obviously I think that's wrong.
Again, that's not just for the sake of growth then.
Right. Well, it's never just for the sake of growth, right? And I think that there are reasons to grow beyond the sake of growth. But it's like saying the same thing of like progress for the sake of progress is the ideology of a cancer cell, right? Like there's always a reason behind it that I think is more relevant to at least the ideology or the purpose behind why you want to progress. What is progress, right? Progress for the sake of progress or growth for the sake of growth is dangerous, I think, because you're not taking into account either some of the ramifications of your actions and therein. But I think that for most individuals, for most businesses, like there is always a purpose. If you could ever identify a state of growth for the sake of growth or progress for the sake of progress, A, kudos to you for being able to actually pick that out of something, and B, watch out, because that sounds like a dangerous setup.
Okay. Last one. Short staffing is just another form of wage theft.
I guess. I think it's usually, I don't know, like, I think there are things that are outside of your control as a manager. If that's a corporate policy, then you're doomed to fail, right? That's my personal opinion. So I don't see that as a successful mindset. And again, I'm thinking about complex jobs, right? I'm not thinking about like warehouse loaders, right? If you're short staffing in a warehouse loaders, then things just don't get loaded on time. If you're short staffing in a complex industry that requires a certain skill set, you're either A, going to get people killed because the workers that you do have are overworked and exhausted, or B, you're just going to not be able to run your equipment, right? If it's short staffing in terms of like, take for example, your wife that you've discussed being short staffed in her office because they know she can do the work. Yeah, that's a problem, right? Do I think it goes as far as that would be?
And here's why. Okay.
Because you're capable of doing two people's jobs, right?
She's doing the work of two people, but making the pay of one.
Right.
That's wage theft.
You know, when Mom left the office that she worked at, they literally had to hire 3 people to replace her when she retired from the county attorney's office there. Yeah. She was just his like admin, right? But they had to hire like 3 people, 2 full-time and 1 part-time, to like do what she was doing for him and get all this stuff filed. So I don't know. That in and of itself is hard to quantify because it I think in that instance maybe it's like you don't know what you got till it's gone type deal.
Yeah.
For what's going on with your wife, it's more a matter of we can do this. We've recognized that we can do this, and she can handle it. Yeah. And she's going crazy doing it, right? And not necessarily being compensated. So, like, I don't think you can hit it with a blanket statement, but I think there are instances you can point to and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and this one you just don't know. You know, I don't know. That's because it's not like the guy she was working for was like malicious or anything. He was a good dude, you know.
Yeah.
And I think,
but I mean, you know,
she'd also been doing it for like 15 years at that point. So,
but that's the thing is these jobs tend to pile on and pile on and pile on, and then they don't pay more. Like they're like, here's another responsibility. Here's another responsibility. It's the same thing they do to teachers.
You know, we used to have a saying. It was one of the old engineers I worked with before he got run off over something. But he told me at one point, he's like, you know, we have done so much for so long, for so little, that now they expect us to do everything forever for nothing.
So one more time, I'm sorry, you cut out.
So we've been running our facilities kind of at restricted budgets or whatever for a long time, and so his statement was, we have done so much with so little for so long that now they expect us to do everything forever for nothing.
Yeah.
And you know what happens at that point? It breaks. And you can't successfully run at least industrial equipment under that mindset. Not for any period of time. You know, we also have a saying, because I'm in the maintenance organization, that it's like, if you don't schedule time for maintenance, your equipment will schedule it for you.
Yeah. That's a pretty good saying.
And, you know, it works with your automobile, it works with your house, your air conditioner, it works with an industrial pump. Eventually things break, and somebody's got to go fix it. And, you know, if you don't have the people there who know how to fix it, you're going to be up a creek. So I think there's very different. You know, we're short-staffed right now. You know, they're trying to hire on more engineers and get people like to fill jobs that we need filled.
I always worry about that though, because like, it's like, okay, so in my head, so this is where I'm messed up, right? So okay, so in my head, I'm thinking, they say, like, even the wife's company, they say they're trying to hire people, they can't find anybody, blah 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 blah. And there's a part of me that is very skeptical of that. The part of me that's skeptical says, y'all say that to keep us here. And maybe you've got something out, and maybe you're pulling in interviews every once in a while, but you're not really forcing yourself to hire people. You're not really putting in the effort to hire people. I've done hiring. I've been to job fairs, and I know that when you want to hire somebody, you can hire somebody, even if it's just a body, even if it's a bad hire. It's it's you're there. The people are there, right? And if you really wanted to hire somebody, train them up to do a job, you can. So if you're really trying that hard, I'm not buying it that people aren't looking for jobs. There's nobody.
I can't speak to your wife's company, right? I can talk about mine. And what's happened for us is that we have, for a year and a half, right? So 18 months. There have been 5 interviews over the period of 18 months. And again, this is a large organization, so it has, every time they go to like add a head count, they have to go through HR, they got to go through a process. They have to have background checks, and they spend money on background checks, and they do the interviews, and then more background checks, and then there was an offer made, right? So it's like a month-long process or 2-month-long process to have one interview scheduled, right? And usually that's why they do them all in batches, right? So they have like 15 interviews or 10 interviews or however many they're going to do. And it takes them about 2 months to get all that set up, right? So there have been 5 interview processes. And they've made an offer 5 different times for 2 different positions. And each time they've offered the position and the person backed out. We had a lady show up. She accepted the position and she showed up for 1 day, quit the next day.
Why?
Because she had a 2-hour commute, and while she was asked, like, hey, you live in Katy, and you're driving 2 hours to get here, like an hour and a half, there, and then you got traffic going back. Her commute home was apparently 2 hours long, and she quit the next day. She was like, no, I'm not going to make this commute. And they were like, but, like, we asked you specifically in the interview when you lied to us about your willing, like, we told you this is where the job is. And I don't know if, like, she thought she was going to be able to work from home more or what, but, like, our job is in the plant. It's in the field. You got to go out there. You got to look at stuff. You got to do stuff, right? That's the job. And if you can't
y'all not making it up that it's remote? Y'all not putting it out there and lying?
I've seen the things. It's like 90% in the field. Like, you need to be out there. Like, I've looked at the job offers. It's all posted online. You can see everything. This is I can look exactly at what the job description is that people are applying to, because they all post it internal before it goes external. So
a lot of times though, maybe they didn't like the offer.
Maybe they didn't like the offer. And there was a guy that happened this last time. So that was the time before last. The last time he got a better offer somewhere else while we were doing interviews, and he just took the other offer. And the problem was that HR knew about it. They didn't call my boss, who went to go meet him, and he waited for 2.5 hours for this guy at the gate to show up who had no intention of showing up, because nobody at HR told us that he had rejected the position.
Wow.
So that's just like a communication and bad business, but
I would be pissed.
I would be furious. So I felt bad for him. So I don't know, like, on the premise, as a general rule, I can absolutely see how like knowing short staffing, like knowing you're short staffing your people is it's a problem. You could call it wage theft. That's not terminology I typically run to, but I think I
think it's important to hyperbolize.
Yeah.
And it may seem ridiculous or whatever, but at the same time, if you look at it and you think literally this person is doing the work of 2 or 3 people and they're not getting compensated for that, that to me is wage theft.
Yeah.
Like they're expecting certain things done, but they're not compensating for the labor.
Well, and then you get into the theta care situation where it's like, all right, I am worth this much. Here's a business that's going to pay me this much. You can either up the ante, or I can go work for these other people. We had an electrician guy who got an offer from another company, and this was several years ago. It's my old boss that I really didn't like. But anyway, so this electrician guy gets an offer from another competitive company in our area, because there's a lot of us around here, right? And he goes to the boss, like any guy who doesn't really want to change jobs, but he's got a better offer. So he goes and he says, hey, look, I got this offer. Can you match it? I don't necessarily want to leave, but they're willing to pay me more. And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, I'll go to HR and see. And so about a week passes by, and he calls the guy back into his office, and he tells him, this is as close to verbatim as I can get because I wasn't in the room, but this is what I heard, right? So he essentially tells the guy, well, I don't think you're worth it, but HR decided to match it or whatever, and throws in the paper. Which, at my point, I'm like, well, the guy who received that feedback basically said, "Screw you. All right, now I know what you think I'm worth. They have already offered me this. You obviously have no respect for what I'm doing out here. Bye." You know.
Yeah. I mean, and that's. I mean, I think everybody has that right.
Yeah. So I mean, now they're gonna tell you, they're gonna feed you some line about like, oh well, you're maxed out for our corporate standard, blah 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 blah. But if they want to hold on to you, they'll bend the rules. Because those policies are only in place for the HR department to hide behind. And I've seen it happen so many times. Like we have policies in place. Oh, you got to do this, this, and this. You can't come in if you've done this. And when they want somebody, they'll say, yeah, but that doesn't apply to you. It's fine.
That's what I'm saying.
Like
that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in her situation, it's like, here's what you're doing. You need to pay me more for this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like 100% raise, but there needs to be something.
Yeah.
But again, she's going to school and doing some other stuff, so planning on that. Anyway, I don't know. I think that a lot of that comes back to like wage negotiation and instances of that where it's like, well, you're doing this to make money off of me. You were going to pay me for it. It's cheaper to give me a raise than it is to hire 2 more people. Because you're already paying for my benefits.
Yeah.
So that's a huge cost for a business, is paying for whatever insurance or retirement package they have. Like paying for those services for an employee. And again, I don't know what she's got, but that's expensive for the business. So it's usually cheaper in that area to provide a raise. It
always is cheaper. It's always cheaper. I'm like,
yeah.
You know, you look at all this stuff, and every time, you can. It's funny because I didn't even see him. You can see how it would have cost them less money. Would have cost the company less money if they had just paid the person what they asked to be paid. And it's, like you could have just paid them $10,000-$20,000 more. And then like the instance with mom, now they have to hire 3 people to do her one job. Kind of like a lot of these things regarding mindsets, and especially mindsets of Americans. I think there are some people that are seriously deluded, and also I think people need to have a paradigm shift.
If you were to put these into a okay, take it back to the living room. Come back over there. Pick it up. If you were to put these in a that's good. If you were to put these in a survey, I probably wouldn't answer the survey because I wouldn't fill it out because I think they're too
broad.
They want you to make sweeping generalizations about people as a whole or businesses or whatever else, and it gives you a very black and white dichotomy between, say your anti-work people and your pure capitalist people. And I think there's too much division there, right? At the end of the day, people want to be okay, right? And they just want to live their lives and go about their thing and do what they want to do. And so, like, everybody is the protagonist of their own stories, right? Like I'm the hero in my own story, and you're just an extra, you're supporting cast, right? And so, like, and it's the same way vice versa,
Right.
And so I don't think that anyone sets out to be mediocre, right?
Yeah. It's facts. I agree.
Everybody's told they're special at a young age, kind of deal, and there's a lot of that goes on, but there's also, like, when the real world hits you, you know, you get out of high school and you get your first bills, or you see your first, you know, paycheck, and things change, right? Yeah, you got the square.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, like I said, I wouldn't answer this survey if it was given to me on like a 1 to 5 basis. How much do you agree with these statements or something like that? Everything would be a 3 because everything was kind of up for debate. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say this though, and I've thought a lot about this because I work with kids, right? If you know, we were talking about the perseverance stuff and the egg and the coffee bean and all that stuff. And grit. If you, in this day and age, if you can stand up to the punches, or you can get back up on your feet when life knocks you down, because life will knock you down. It's inevitable. In this generation, you're gonna run the world. You're gonna run the world. Rob, I'm telling you, there are so many soft ass kids. Like I can't even.
I know.
If
we get them out there in the like the 18, 19-year-olds that come out to work for us. Like there's a few of them that are tough, but like, man, if I get on them for like screwing up something, because that's my job, right? Like I have to go and watch, like make sure stuff's put back together correctly.
Yeah.
If I get to go on them and get on them to do something again, like, hey, you screwed this up. I need you to go take it apart and put it back together correctly. I might as well get somebody else to do it.
They could lose their minds.
They'll lose their minds. And they don't last very long.
So hurt, so offended. And it, you know.
And I'm the bad guy, and I'm just like, I don't care.
It's funny because I do that too. I do that to my son all the time. My the ones, actually, all of them. Yeah. Like, no, get back here and fix it. Do it right. And, you know, they grumble, but they do it. And it doesn't matter how many times they do it, you're going to do it. And I'm not going to come behind you and do it for you. You're going to do it. And so, you know, with my athletes, with my own kids, that's probably the thing that I try to make sure they do the most. I mean, even with the little ones, the thing that I say over and over and over again, and our mantra here in this house is, try again. You're gonna try again.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you fail. It matters that you get back up and you try again. So that's
a good
how
spot. That's life lessons with the boys here, with the bros.
There you go.
All right. Y'all take a good one.
Thank you for watching this episode of BroPartisan Hacks with Rhys and Rob. We really, really appreciate you watching, tuning in. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to us. We're putting out content as often as we can. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get our names out there. Also, hit that bell, tap that bell right there so that you can get updated when we put out a new video. Rob and I are trying to pump these videos out as often as we can. However, we both have day jobs, we have families, so our schedules have to line up so that we can make a new video. Speaking of our day jobs, our opinions and views expressed are our own and in no way represent those of our respective employers. Thank you. Thanks again for watching.